Hey you and welcome. I'm Mr. Barry. In this whole video I want to talk about questions regarding charging your EV or electric vehicle. Now, whenever I go out and talk with my friends, one of the questions that they normally come up with about my EV or my electric vehicle is, hey, how do you charge it? Where do you charge it? How long it takes? And so this video was really focused on all of those types of questions. So I'm going to try to tackle all of those real quickly here for you. Now, when you buy your electric vehicle, one of the things that it comes with is an actual charger that's actually built into the car. There's an AC as well as a DC charger that's built into almost every electric vehicle out there. And for example, so when I bought my Tesla, it came with this travel pack. And let me open it up and just see what's inside the travel pack. Well, one of the things that you get is, of course, so you can charge it at home. This is a 120 volt, just a normal little plug there. And you also have the 240 volt plug that came with mine. Now, if you go to the Tesla website, to the store, you can actually buy different plugs depending on what you have in your house. So let's say that you had a different type of plug than what you have here, then go ahead and you can actually purchase that and have that charging your electric vehicle with. The other thing that, of course, the Tesla comes with is this right here. You go, what in the world is this? This is an adapter. And actually I have two adapters. I have the what's called J1772 plug. So on one side, as you see here, it's meant to plug into a J1772 plug. So when we look at EV stations out there in the wild, out there, maybe you go to a store and you kind of look at them, they look kind of like a gas station, but there's no gas there. There's only electricity. Most of them actually have this right here, the J1772 plug. It's about equivalent to 240 volts AC. So it's not the fastest charger, nor is it the slowest, but it does have that adapter there. The next adapter that I have here from a Tesla is this right here, and this is a CHAdeMO adapter. And so on one side is, oh yeah, that's huge, huh? This is the CHAdeMO plug, and this is for quick DC charging. And if you've ever owned a Nissan Leaf or a Mitsubishi EV, then you'd be very familiar with the CHAdeMO plug here. And what this does is you take the CHAdeMO plug and you plug it in here, and you plug this into your electric vehicle, or in this case my Tesla here. And so that's why these adapters really come in handy. As you see here, this is the Tesla side that plugs into the car, and then this is the other side that plugs into the plug that's coming off of the CHAdeMO. All right. Now, not everyone's going to be buying a Tesla. So what other options out there? Well, there's also CSS, as you see here, and that's very, very common. It's very similar to a quick charge like the CHAdeMO, but the plug is much smaller, which is kind of nice. In fact, it's a much faster charge by an order of maybe like 5 to 7 times faster than you'd find in a CHAdeMO. So that's really, really handy. And let me get another EV charger here. So as I was saying earlier, every EV comes with its own charging cables there. So here's another one that comes with the Tesla, and this side allows me to plug in things such as this 240 volt plug or other plugs, and then this is the Tesla side where I'd actually plug it in to the car. All right, let's look at another charger here. This is the heavy duty one here, and this works with basically any EV that's out there. Any EV out there will be able to plug into a J1772 plug, and that's what this is right here. So this is a J1772 plug. Let's unplug it here, reveal it. There's what it looks like. So in the case of my Tesla, I have to use the adapter. So So I just simply lock the adapter in place. There we go. So now I have a J1772 cable going into my Tesla adapter, and then that would go into the car. All right. On the other side, you see that I have a plug here for the 240 volt plug. And for this one, actually comes with some gauges, so you can actually see how many amps are running through the unit. So you can increase it, decrease it. Any EV2, when you get into the car and you begin the charging process, right on your screen, it should show you how many amps it's drawing from the wall, and you can change it. So let's say that it's drawing 10 amps, but you don't want it to draw 10 amps. You want to lower that for some reason. Maybe you want to run cooler. Then you can bring it down to like 5 amps or even less than that. On mine, when I charge at my house, I've actually brought it down to less than 5 amps and been able to charge overnight that way. The next question that comes up, they say, well, Mr. Barry, where are these elusive EV stations? Well, if you're speaking of Tesla, Tesla just added like 10,000 new stations this year in 2022. So they're adding a lot of new stations. I think there's more than 25,000 stations out there. So there's a lot of stations out there. These stations are normally next to busy highways. So that's where people would be charging, right? I use an app to find the charging stations, and there's two that I use. One is the Tesla. So right when you sit at the car, you'd press the button that's found on the right hand side of the steering wheel and then say navigate to your destination. In this case, I'm going to say navigate to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And within a few seconds, all the supercharging stations along my route will come up along my map, and it will actually plan a trip for me. And this works like any GPS, where it will give you directions to each of the supercharging stations along your path. The other app I use is PlugShare. Now, PlugShare is absolutely free, and it works with both Android and iPhones. Once you download it, install it onto your phone or to your computer, you will then need to create a free account. And once you create your account, you are asked to select which car that you have. That's very important so that you can find the right plugs for your particular type of EV. From there, you can turn on different filters to find stations which require a fee or stations which do not require a fee. And if you have adapters that come with your car, you can actually select a wider range of charging stations by using the filters. From there, you can select a destination and it will create the waypoints for you. You can then send it to your car or to your phone. So its GPS can lead you to each point or EV station for your trip. And now for the next question. How long does it take for me to charge up my EV? Well, that varies considerably. I'm going to tell you an actual story that happened with me. I planned a trip from coast to coast. So from California all the way I went to Kentucky. And in the trip, what I did was I set my parameters of how much I want to deplete my battery and how full I want my battery to be when I leave an EV station. So I set the lower limit to be 30% and I set the upper limit to 85%. That means when I got to the EV station, I was at 30% or a little bit above. And when I left the station, I was at 85%. And it worked out great. I was at each EV station for less than 5 minutes. And that was perfect. That was a perfect time for me to use the restroom, get a bite to eat, get something to drink there, get back. And within 5 minutes, it was actually done. In fact, on some of these stops, it was actually around 3.5 to 4 minutes. So it was really, really quick at each station. And you may wonder, you go, hey, wait a minute. I hear people having to wait 25 minutes or so to get charged. Well, what they're doing is they're letting it go down. So they're not stopping at the EV station at 30%. They're stopping when it's at maybe 10% or something, which I don't recommend anyway. And then when they're charging it beyond 85%, which is not something that you really want to do anyway. The reason being is because when you go above 85%, the charging rate slows down. So maybe when you started, you're doing 1,000 miles per hour charging rate, right? From 30% all the way to 85% or so. And then once you hit that 85% or around that number, it begins to slow down dramatically. And that's when you get to wait for an extra 15 minutes just to get a little bit out there. So it's not really worth it. So the best thing to do is just to set your parameters so that when you make your trip, you go to your Tesla app or you go to your PlugShare app, and you actually can set your parameters so that you don't go below 30% or so. And then you set it so that you're leaving at each station at 85%. So there you go. It is possible to make these stops in under 5 minutes by using that formula there. And that's at the Tesla superstations. Now, if you have something like a Ford Mach-E or a Chevy Bolt, they take the CSS, and that is also a very quick charge as well. That can happen as fast as 1,000 miles per hour charging rate. The same limits apply. So if you have your Mach-E and you're doing a coast-to-coast trip, just set up your trip information there so that you don't go below 30 and you don't charge above 85% or so. That way you get a quick charge and you're ready to go to the next wayward point. Now the next question I often get is there an app that allows me to actually plan my trips besides PlugShare and the Tesla app? And there is one other one that I use, and that's called a Better Route Planner. And this is what it looks like. And basically it works the same as the others. This does have more settings allowed to you though, so that you can basically do that little trick that I was sharing with you, where you don't go below 30% and you don't go above 85% of the charge or state of charge when you're leaving the EV stations. And so a Better Route Planner, that's the last one there of the apps that I use for planning my trips. So we've gone over a lot of different things in this video. We've gone over the different types of plugs, how long it takes, and for the different types of plugs and different things like that. One of the questions that comes up though is cost. You know, how much does it actually cost? Well, it's very consistent. It's a very easy formula to use. It's 1/3 the cost of gasoline. So let's say that you're using your gas-powered car or your whatever you have, a gas-powered truck, and you're going back and forth to work, and you're doing all of your shopping, everything else, all your routine, and you just leave that car behind and you go and you switch to an EV, like maybe the Tesla Model 3 or maybe the Rivian truck or the Ford Lightning truck or one of those others. What are the cost difference for fueling that vehicle? And the answer is 1/3. So if you had a Ford truck and now you went over to the Ford Lightning, the cost is going to be 1/3. So if you're spending $100 a week on fuel, it'll be 1/3 that. So it'll be around $33 or so. If you had a car that you're driving around and you switch to the Model 3, boom, again, it's 1/3 the cost. So the savings you get back from that is just immediate. Now you probably are wondering now, you say, Mr. Barry, I saw that on the apps that you were using, you were selecting the free apps. Is it possible to get all of your electricity for free? And the answer is yes. So there are many stations across all the states, and normally these stations are near highways and they're by the by busy intersections. There are free stations, and so in the last 2 years I've been able to find all of these free stations. And just to let you know, even the Tesla supercharging stations are free on certain weekends. And on those weekends, that's when I do my trips. So that's great. So if you really want to talk about the cost there, in the last 2 years, I've spent nothing on fuel for my vehicle because I've been able to find the free stations either here locally or even when I'm on a trip. It does take a little bit of research though, because you have to look at the PlugShare app or choose the Better Route Planner and set those parameters there so that you are finding the free apps. Sometimes, you know, it works out that way. So hopefully you can plan your trip when the Tesla supercharging network is free for that weekend, and you get to have a really fun trip there. So, but if you were paying for it, the price is 1/3 that of gasoline. All right, hopefully I've answered many of your different questions about charging your EV and the different ways, the different plugs that we have, like the J1772. Just as a recap, the J1772 charges your car at about 30 miles per hour charge rate. So that's a slow charge rate, and usually would see that at a store or at a park. Just to, you know, you park your car there for a few hours, you take a stroll through the shopping center or whatever, you come back a couple hours later and you get, you know, an extra 60 miles or so. Yeah, 30 miles per hour charging rate. When you're looking at something like CHAdeMO, that can be all the way up to 140, 150 miles per hour charge rate. That would be on the upper end. Many of the stations that I've seen cross country were lower than that. That would be the fastest. And when I mean lower, that means maybe 100 miles per hour charge rate was real average. For the Tesla supercharging network, the fastest is 1,000 miles per hour charge rate. So that's the one to go with. CSS, again, 1,000 miles per hour charge rate. So that's, now you know how fast the charge rate is for these different networks that you find out there. And hopefully I've given you the information that you need to go on and actually buy that EV. There are many used EVs from CarMax and others which have been tested. Their traction battery, that is their main battery that they use to drive with, it's called the traction battery. The traction battery has been tested, and they do not, at CarMax, they don't sell a car unless it actually has like 90% of the battery life or something like that. So, but all that information is there at CarMax. CarMax is not paying me to say anything. I'm just giving out free information there on to help you find a used EV if that's what you want to go with. And hey, if you like these types of videos, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below, especially if you have a question that maybe I didn't cover completely, because I have been editing this video all day long, and I know I did cut out some segments. I go, we'll cover that in another video or so, because this was going to be a rather long video, but I'm trying to keep it shorter for you. So if you have a question, comment, whatever you have, just leave it down below in the comments. I'll get to it as soon as I can. And I want to say a big thank you to all those subscribers who've been sharing my videos across the world there through their social media sites. I really appreciate it. So a big thank you to every single one of you guys. Thank you very much. And a big thank you to the guys too who have allowed me to drive their other EVs. So I was able to take a short trip with someone's Chevy Bolt. I drove around in a Ford Mach-E. I drove around in other EVs too, Nissan Leaf, for example, and just to see how their range was, how to charge those, those cars up, and so I can give you really good information there. So a big thank you to all those who allow me to drive their EVs. Alrighty, thank you again, and bye bye.